Larva is a semi-popular show that you've probably seen on Netflix. Throughout its many seasons, there has been one large story developing in the background. Today, I'm going to look at the show about worms that fart and eat stuff in a sewer pipe. But first, I would like to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America. I think it's high time we get someone in office that knows what they're doing, and that's me. What are my policies, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you when you elect me. There might be an issue with the fact that I'm not 35, but we'll cross that road when we get there. Vote Mung 2024. But my campaign is besides the point right now. I'm here to talk about Larva. The show follows these two larvae here, red and yellow. Don't worry, you're probably confused. This one is red and this one is yellow. I couldn't figure that one out either. They live together and sometimes care for each other, but most of the time they are backstabbing, treacherous fiends to one another. The show is made up of 90-second segments all about farting and gross toilet humor, and to top it off, they can't talk. And would you believe this show has 6 seasons, a movie, and a half-hour special? With so much content to consume, what do these larvae do? They fight for food. They fling their snot around. They fight for food. I mean, that's about it. They also fight for women. Well, larva women. Thanks to this video, my search history now shows, do larvae have genders? Let's establish our characters. Red is very ill-tempered. He is narcissistic and not pleasant to be around. He is genuinely terrible. Yellow is somewhat better than red. He is sometimes caring and sometimes kind. He is also garbage. He is a big-time glutton, much more so than red. He's also super inconsiderate. If there's tons of food to go around, he will gobble it all up. But I guess so would red, so they're about equally as bad. The first season takes place in what is called the Grate, which is underneath a sewer grate in New York. This is the Grate Arc. Red and yellow live down here. Most of their activities involve food, but sometimes happen to involve certain things that fall down the grate, or various weather events like a flood. But most generally their antics are food related, especially when it concerns this, Vienna sausage. Not only do they have to fight each other for food, there are other creatures that live down there. Before I can go any further, I have to establish our wacky cast of characters. Another one of the main characters is Violet. Are you starting to see a naming theme? It's never glaringly obvious if they are friends or enemies. There's times where he helps them out, but other times he completely backstabs them, and one time he crushed them. Brown is a dung beetle. Dung beetles carry poop. This was how he first appeared, completely different to how he looks now. He only ever looked like this in one segment. Like the rest of his species, he rolls around a giant ball of poop that he is absolutely infatuated with. He often eats it, which is splendid. Black is the big bully. He uses force to get what he wants. He is often the cause for a lot of the larva's pain. He has probably killed people down there. Rainbow is a snail. Obviously, being a snail, he's very slow. However, later in this season, it is revealed he has an astonishing ripped body, including arms, legs, abs, which they focus a lot on. Pink is another larva. She is beyond in love with yellow. Meanwhile, she wants nothing to do with red. However, red consistently lusts for her, and she continually friend zones him. Blue, also referred to as Fly, because that's what he is one of the more minor characters. He is like Brown. Everyone hates him because he's nasty. So now we need to talk about the enemies. They try to eat our main characters. Navy is an anglerfish, and believe it or not, he actually has a villain arc. He started out as a goldfish. Suddenly, the bag pops. And to save Navy, Red plugs the hole with his mouth. His body then fills up with all the water. Still not saving Navy, the water starts to escape through Red's butthole. Yellow puts his mouth on Red's butthole, and his body fills up. Luckily, they make it to a sardine can and they spray it into there. They throw poor Navy into the can, into the steamy poop water. I guess this mutated him into the anglerfish. The larva had good intentions, but that poor fish. In the rest of Navy's appearances, he tries to consume the larva, I guess as like a vendetta. Green, or simply Frog, is another one of the pesky villains that try to gobble down the other characters. He is a pretty important character, so make sure you remember this amphibian. A few other characters, bee, and a praying mantis, that for some reason is named Wart. They're all adversaries, but literally have one appearance. So when I say these episodes are mostly about food, I mean it. Here's a list of some of the episode names. Ice cream, mushroom, gum 1 and gum 2, popcorn, ham, spaghetti, pudding, watermelon, walnut, soda, and grape. The other conflicts they go through are natural events like floods, earthquakes, a typhoon that makes even less sense in a sewer, snow, ice, getting peed on by a dog, Wait, what? In quite a few of these episodes, the larva or other characters die, or are harmed beyond repair, and with cartoon logic, they are fine the next episode. Some things are explainable how they survived, others not so much, and I don't really have an explanation for this other than cartoon logic. There have been multiple times where supernatural forces reckoned with them. One time, an alien happened to come down and he had the powers to heal wounds and resurrect flowers. Maybe he does the same for the larva behind the scenes. I also wonder if Larva can't die. In the episode called Mummy, they find a sarcophagus and inside is Red's father, who was mummified. Yellow does end up killing him though. I don't know if their lifespan is really important. But this begs the question, with so much danger in their life and the constant struggle to survive, why continue to go on? Are they really staying alive to eat? Is it that important? What are their goals? What are they striving for? You might think they want to get out of the sewer, but they've had the opportunity and haven't taken it. Their real goal is to go through metamorphosis and become butterflies. Turns out, caterpillars eat a bunch before pupating. All this time, they've been trying to gain enough energy to evolve. At the end of the season, they actually do, just like Pink did in the episode prior. In the 3-part season finale, they form a chrysalis and become butterflies. I'd say just larvae with wings. I would not really call them butterflies, but they fly out of the grate and look at the world around them. They get an emotional goodbye from all their friends they are leaving behind. They fly to airplane height and then get hit by an airplane. And then they nearly fly through the engine and then they lose their wings completely, which I don't think that's how that works. They then fall from an enormous height, they bounce off stuff, kill a guy, and then encounter 3 pigeons. That's the end. They leave us on the cliffhanger of the century. Season 2 picks up right where we left off. The lead pigeon has grabbed Red and Yellow and is flying above the streets of New York. Those streets are mysteriously filled with only red, yellow, and green cars. Odd choice for the animators. Yellow farts and propels the pigeon into centripetal motion. Thus, the pigeon drops the larva in an Invader Zim type house. The larvae are now in the house. The house arc. The house is owned by an old lady. Don't worry, we see her like twice. Also in the house is her middle-aged grandson, Tom. Neither of these characters are that important, like, at all. But they aren't the only new characters. They have pets. Prussian, who is a parrot. And yes, Prussian is a shade of blue. There's Maroon, a dachshund, and Prism, a chameleon. That name never made sense to me because prism isn't a color. But a prism can, for lack of a better term, make all of the colors, and chameleons can camouflage, thus making all the colors. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but that's the only way it makes sense. These are the new set of villains. What the larvae do in the house isn't super different from what they did in the grate. However, now their goals are a lot less clear. A lot of the segments take place in the windowsill, which is most often where they reside. Once again, they fight for food, survive the predators, survive the elements, and explore all of the obstacles that come with inside the house, like stairs and a kitchen. Red and Yellow aren't the only ones in the house. Somehow, all of the past characters knew how to get there, and which house the larva happened to be in. Brown gets in through the doggy door. In this episode, we truly learn how much he loves his poop. Red and Yellow try to flush it, and he's willing to die for it, and jumps in the toilet. Also in this season, we learn that Brown should really be named Golden, because that is his true color. After being fed up with his stench, the larvae try to clean him, and eventually they do, revealing his brown color is just poop and gunk caked on. Black also comes back. He is locked in a cage, brought in by the middle-aged dude. For once, Black is vulnerable and relies on his frenemies for help. Red takes the role of a ruthless prison warden and refuses to let Yellow help him. Black reveals the biggest plot twist in cinematic history and unveils his true self. His hardened body is actually just armor for whatever his species truly is. This was a shock no one saw coming. He is never seen like this again, and I thank the creators. Pink also joins the crew again. After she departed from them in butterfly form, she is found inside of a flower. No longer a butterfly. I don't think metamorphosis can be reversed, but whatever. Green, the frog, makes one appearance this season as well. He duels Prism, but then they eventually join forces, but nothing comes of it after that episode. With all of the characters back and a new set of villains, the story never actually develops all that much. We get a surprisingly dark and emotional love story for Red, where he falls in love with a mayfly, but due to their lifespan being only a few days, she dies on him. But then Red falls in love with another one, and then she dies, and then another one, and then she dies, and then Red has had enough and tries to die, but doesn't, obviously. In one of the last episodes of the season, it is revealed that once again, Red and Yellow are trying to become butterflies. So I guess the motive was the same as the last season? Hoard up on food and then evolve? Well, this never happens. A few episodes later, change is forced upon them. In the 3-part finale, which is even more awesome than season 1's, the grandma and Tom leave with their 3 pets, and a wrecking ball smashes into the house. Red and Yellow get stuck to the wrecking ball, and the worker loses control, and it sends the wrecking ball bye-bye into the air. For some unexplained reason, Brown, Black, Pink, and Violet are on a rooftop, and they wave goodbye to the larva. The wrecking ball lands on a roller coaster, which sends them over the ocean, then propelled by a whale, sends the larva into the air, where they pilot a flying fish. After a seagull attack, they use the projectile fish eggs to combat them. That's disgusting! They fight off the seagulls and land on the Empire State Building. They cheer that they finally made it to safety, and then they accidentally knock each other off, and bam! Yet again, another cliffhanger. At the beginning of Season 3, a little bit of time has passed, and it's revealed they survived the fall with no explanation. And now they're like a lot of people in New York, homeless and living on the street. Now begins the 3rd arc, the Streets arc. Red and Yellow no longer have a home, and they live on the streets with the rest of their friends. Brown and Black were much more prominent this season, while Pink and Rainbow made occasional appearances. Poor Violet is in like 1 episode, and that's it. They made some new friends, Ivory, a weak little stick bug. No one likes him too much, except for Yellow. There's also Coco. I'm not too sure what she's supposed to be, but she's the cool new hot girl that literally every character drools over, and of course, in the underdog story, Ivory is the one that gets her. A new set of villains also comes into play. Gray. He's a mouse, and I think he's got an exposed peepee. There's the Silvers, 2 pigeons, with a watermelon rind and a banana peel on their heads. It's revealed later on that underneath their fruit hats, they're bald. Besides a select few, most of the episodes are what Season 1 and 2 have been. They fight for food, they fight each other, they fight the predators. It's still funny. It's still good. Nothing really too prominent. However, there are a few episodes to note. Tom, the grandson from the house, he is now known as the Insect Killer. I guess he wants revenge or something. He goes in the garden and captures Red, Yellow, Brown, Black, Ivory, and a few characters that we haven't seen since Season 1 in the Great. Mantis, or Wart, Bee, and the ants. He takes them back to his house and tries to kill them. Well, he does kill the Mantis, Bee, and the ants. I guess it was cool to see them again. This may seem random to bring this episode up, but it's important later. Up until now, I haven't mentioned the parodies the larvas do. In Season 1, they were Larvitar, parodying Avatar. In Season 2, they were Larvengers, parodying Avengers. And now, in Season 3, they are Larva Rangers, a parody of Power Rangers. I haven't mentioned them because they were never too important, but now Larva Rangers have become a recurring theme in Larva. In the 7-part series, each of the 5 main characters, Red, Yellow, Brown, Black, and Pink, each have their own vehicle, and when combined make a giant mech. Gray, the Silvers, and Green, who makes a return once again this season, make their own garbage mech, and they fight each other. It's pretty cool. Don't know how the larvae have their own mechs, and I think it's better that I don't question it. It sets up a sequel episode at the very end with Gray plotting to make his own mech, but nothing comes of it this season. At the end of the season, they accidentally fly away on a paper airplane, giving us one last look at our characters that we've known since Season 1. Goodbye, Brown, Black, Pink, Violet, Rainbow, all of them. Sorry you got to like these characters, cause now they're gone. After an intense travel, somehow they end up on the island. After this, we were left on a cliffhanger for 4 years. Larva Island, Season 1, which is really Season 4, Red and Yellow land on this island. They meet a bunch of new friends, including Mango, a feral larva that Red absolutely falls for. Of course, he likes anything that will look at him. Clara, a seal, which she is a pretty cute character. Booby, the new main antagonist. Crab's Former, which, yeah, is a crab that is a transformer. Mudskippers, that are kind of adversaries. There's one in particular, the muscular mudskipper. He's more important. And Chuck, a human. Look, there was an unwritten rule to not make human main characters. That is just expected from a show like this, because what are you gonna have a human do in a show with no dialogue?
Dude, it's rescue time!
They gave him dialogue. Wonderful. Now there's exposition in Larva, not what the show needed. They do some wacky island antics, still obsessed with food, but literally nothing happens this season. Nearing the end of the season, Yellow is the only character on the island without someone to love. Red has Mango, the Mudskippers have each other, Crab's Former has Salmon, Chuck has Clara. I don't want to go further into the human-seal relationship. Yellow is all alone. He accidentally makes his way back to New York. He sees all his friends again, but he is really in search of Pink. When he finds Black, he tries to prevent Yellow from seeing Pink, and the reason is quite a plot twist. Brown's been banging her. Not only that, but they have had multiple children. Yellow is mortified. Rightfully so. Yellow considers killing Brown, but ultimately leaves. Pink catches him in time, but Brown finds the two meeting up. Yellow cucks out and leaves, willingly, back to the island. I thought they were trying to leave. So that was awesome to see the characters we've been forced to abandon. The rest of the season, nothing really happens. Season 2, there was no cliffhanger leading to a new location like the previous seasons. Season 2 is maybe a little bit better than the last one. In one of the episodes titled Larva Rangers, Ivory, who we haven't seen in a year, flows through the wind and haphazardly lands on the island. Ivory tells them a backstory that without Red and Yellow, the Larva Rangers are useless. The four of them capture literally every character: Brown, Black, Pink, their dung beetle larva kids, Rainbow, Coco, and Ivory. But the wind helped Ivory escape. The four predators end up on the island with a mechanical dumpster and all of those characters in a cage. Green quickly eats Red, Yellow, Mango, Ivory, Muscular Mudskipper, and Crab's Former. In what feels like a betrayal, Mango, Crab's Former, and Muscular Mudskipper replace Brown, Black, and Pink as the other three Larva Rangers. After a fierce battle between them, the predators retreat and go to their garbage mech, a ginormous dumpster-sized machine. The Larva Rangers are no match for the garbage mech, so they combine their powers with Chuck the Cringelord. Now, the Larva Rangers are human-sized. Chuck says some cringe dialogue, and then they duel the garbage mech, and then the Larva Rangers blast them away. Our old characters say their goodbyes and go back to New York on their mech. Hear me out. If they've been trying for 2 seasons to get off this island, why didn't they go with them? At least they give Mango a backstory. Her parents were the protectors of the island, and if an eruption were to ever happen, they would have to keep it at bay. Well, suffice to say, it wasn't kept at bay one time, and now her parents are no more. In the penultimate episode, the volcano erupts again, so now they have to leave on a raft Chuck made. They literally fly away on their raft. Mango last minute decides to abandon ship and fly back to the island with Booby. In the next episode, they are then stranded on the raft with no food, so Chuck eats Clara. No, but could you imagine? Yellow accidentally separates their raft. Clara floats to a little seal island. Chuck floats back to New York. Crab's Former floats back to the island, which has been restored by Mango. And Red and Yellow eat another one of those fart mushrooms and blast off into the sunset. And we are left on somewhat of a cliffhanger. The next chronological installment in the timeline is Larva Pendant, even though the Larva Island movie released before it. Yeah, they got a movie. I'll talk about that in a second. Larva Pendant, the half-hour special. Red and Yellow are still stranded on that raft. Red has carved himself and Mango into the wood, and then he begins to cry, covering it with his tears. The moonlight then shines on the carving and makes it magical. Larva was never really sci-fi, but okay. Maybe it's that alien from season 1. A swordfish destroys their raft. Red is able to grab the Mango part of the carving, but the part with the red carving floats back to the island. Red and Yellow then get hit by a boat. Meanwhile, in a house in New York, a guy, who we'll just call him Human because they don't give him a name, walks into a house with a cage of insects. Blue, who we haven't seen since season 3, Mantis, who literally died in season 3. Also, an ant, a few of them died in season 3. Could be a different one though. And Asphalt, a blue bee. I don't know why her name is Asphalt. Some dude did not know his colors. Asphalt escapes before the human can study. The human's cat, Malt, chases after her, and they end up in an alleyway. Red and Yellow also happen to be in said alleyway. They don't explain what happened after the boat, just they're okay now. Malt captures Asphalt. When the larvae go by a glass bottle, Mango appeared in a portal type thing, and she was viewing the red carving on the island. Red never notices this though. Malt then chases after Red and Yellow. Malt catches Yellow after like a 5-minute chase, and he also has the pendant, which is just the Mango carving. But Red escapes. The human, who went out for stuff, happens to drop his wallet while bike riding, which just happens to be right where Red is, and it just happens to open, and there's a picture of the human and Malt. Lots of just happenstance coincidences. Red hitches a ride and goes to his house. Red sneaks in through vents, and in one of the cobwebs there's Blue, whose body is fresh. So, kinda sad, season 1 character killed off. Womp womp. Inside the house, Yellow and Asphalt are now in a cage. The human takes Asphalt and puts her in some innator that looks like it came from Dr. Doofenshmirtz, and connects himself to it. Whatever he's trying to do, it fails. We never see asphalt again. Red helps Yellow escape, and then they both try to escape. They climb up into some tube, they fall back out, the pendant cracks, Malt eats Yellow, and Red falls into the machine. Red cares more about his broken piece of wood than his best friend of like 11 years that was just consumed. Inside the machine, Red is able to see Mango very clearly through the portal thing. Red begins to get gassed, and then Mango does some voodoo seance. This causes a tree to grow in the room, and Red becomes Superman. I'm starting to think Larva needs to stick with 90-second segments about food. Red forces Malt to hack up Yellow, also, I think, killing the cat. Yellow dies. His soul ascends to Vienna sausage heaven. Bear with me here. Red flies into space, flies around Earth so fast that it reverses its spin, somehow making time go backwards, thus making Yellow's soul go back into his body. Red kills the cat again, but Yellow still dies. As he is ascending, Red, I think, technically dies, turns himself into a spirit, and then forcefully puts Yellow's soul back into his body. Red and Yellow fly away, going back to the island for no reason whatsoever. Red loses his Superman abilities, and they fall back to land. Meanwhile, on the island, Mango leaves everyone behind and heads to New York. On the streets of New York, Red and Yellow are roaming around, and then they are picked up by an owl and taken to her nest in a greenhouse. Cliffhanger ending. This special sucked. Moving on to the next season. Larva Family. The greenhouse arc. Red and Yellow escape the owl's nest and eat some berries, except for one of those berries is an egg, which Yellow eats. He then gets pregnant and, after a day, craps out a baby larva. And I'm disgusted that this is someone's fetish. Red and Yellow are dads to the new character, Magenta. We have the Larva family. The owl is mauve, and her baby is tan. There's a turtle character, which it's pretty cool. However, his name is Big Brown. He's literally like Brown, the dung beetle. But instead of eating his poop, can you guess what he does? He drinks his pee. Grizzly, a moth, he's an antagonist. And finally, there's an entire colony of bees, but most importantly, Moni, Momo, and Mocha are the three main bee characters. Once again, there's no huge crazy story arcs, just mostly standalone segments. In one segment, they go back to the island, through a drain in their little reservoir thing. Red misses Mango and she's not there. We see all of the characters very briefly. We learn that Crab's former and Salmon had kids, along with Muscular Mudskipper and another Mudskipper. Once the three larvae return home, Mango returns to the island on her raft, so they never actually meet up, which is kind of weird storytelling. You'd think they're building something up. No, we haven't seen Mango again. The Larva Rangers also make a return. The Silvers are spying on the greenhouse. Larva and gang are having a party, and Gray comes in and spikes their drink with brainwash juice. All of the background bees and Yellow fall under his control. Then, Gray and the Silvers capture Red, Grizzly, Big Brown, and Mauve. It's up to Magenta, Tan, and the three bees to save them. They figure out how to use the Larva Rangers mechs, which they just happen to have their own. Who is making these mechs? They fight them and rescue the others, and then they bring out the big guns. Red and Yellow get their mechs, but so do Mauve, Big Brown, and Grizzly. They all work together and completely clobber Gray and the Silvers. I don't know why Green wasn't brought back for this. The main theme of this season is growing up, and that's what Magenta does. She eventually evolves into a bee after all the care and nurturing from her fathers. Tan also grows up into a more mature owl. In the final episode, two pink bees come to the greenhouse, claiming they are Magenta's real parents. They get all cuddly and cozy, but we quickly learn that they are wasps painted pink, and they are there to steal the bees' honey. They end up taking the small beehive to their huge hive. There we learn one of those wasps is the queen, and she basically enslaves the baby wasp larva. Red, Yellow, and Magenta infiltrate the huge beehive, launch it into the greenhouse, almost cause a huge fire, almost kill a bunch of baby larvae. They don't. They're fine. They just about have the queen wasp killed, and on the edge of death, like Mufasa, but Magenta's good nature wants to help her, despite, the queen trying to kill her countless times. Red and Yellow were like, Magenta does it anyway. It was a plot. Shocker. She tries to drag Magenta into the fire with her, but Red and Yellow sacrifice themselves in a surprisingly, really emotional send-off with their adoptive daughter. Flashbacks, the whole shebang. The globe thing that the hive was in falls down into the oasis pool, and Red and Yellow die. Like, I'm not kidding. They literally killed off the two main characters. Time jump, Magenta reminisces all the good times they had and finds a picture of them on a smartphone. She is raising the baby wasp larvas, and they have little toys of Red and Yellow. Emotional music is playing. You're crying, I'm not crying, and the theme comes full circle. Red and Yellow matured and raised a baby, cared for her, loved for her, and now their baby is doing the same thing when they're not around. Oh wait, there's like 5 seconds left of the episode. Oh, the ocean? And Red and Yellow are alive in the ocean. They don't explain how. My guess is they escaped the drain at the bottom of the pool from the island episode, but I don't know. This is the most recently released canon Larva content, so the story should end here. No. The Larva Island movie. Despite this movie being released before Pendant and Family, I think canonically it's the most recent thing on the timeline. Let me explain. The movie follows Chuck, who is now clean-shaven and walking on the street. He almost steps on Brown. Good to see him again. Don't get used to it. This is his last scene in the movie. He is on his way to give an interview with a weirdo named Grace. She wants to write a book about his story. So Chuck tells it. We see a flashback. This flashback is literally just an episode from Larva Island. Nothing switched around. Nothing different. Copy and pasted. After the episode ends, we get a bit more dialogue between Chuck and Grace, which leads into another flashback, which, again, is just an episode. Repeat this. Episode. Chuck and Grace interstitial. Episode. Etc. This isn't a movie. This feels illegal. How can you release a movie of just a compilation of episodes? Seriously, it's like a compilation video on YouTube. The in-between parts of Chuck and Grace aren't good, and it's also not well animated. This feels unfair. This isn't a movie. It's just a forceful binge watch. At the very end, Chuck leaves and drops a penny. Where does the penny go? Down a grate. The very same grate from season 1. Guess who's there? Red and Yellow. Full circle. This movie has to take place after Family, because Pendant picks right up where Island left off, and Family picks right up where Pendant left off, leaving no room to fit the movie in the timeline. This isn't the end of our story. There is a 2024 release, Larva in Mars. The larva are 2D. Accidentally got shipped off to Mars. So far, only 20 episodes have been released out of a supposed 78. I certainly hope it just stops at 20. Look, I hate on stuff a lot, but this show is garbage. Not that the first seasons are amazing. This is coming from a lifelong Larva fan. I've been a fan of Larva since I was 9 years old. I loved this show before season 3 even came out. I'm an OG, okay? I know my Larva content, and this is a mockery of Larva. Firstly, the timeline. Where does it fit? It doesn't. I'm thinking 2D Larva is not canon. I will tell you why in a second, but first, let me whine about this. The stories try to be slightly serialized, but fail, and they're very, very, very confusing. 2D Larva is much harder to understand. They constantly play old theme songs from the first 3 seasons, even when the music doesn't belong, and the tracks will interrupt each other. There's constant screen wipes, jumping ahead in the story, the designs are way too simple, the character designs are very bland. I'm pretty sure the audio clips are ripped off from the first 3 seasons, thus they sound kind of weird. Also, they reference SpongeBob, which feels very out of place, and the character briefly sings Baby Shark in a different language. This sucks. Anywho, you want to see something worse?
This is the phonics song. Let's go. A is for apple. Apple. B is for ball. Ball.
I'm speechless. I didn't know this existed until this video, and I just don't know what to say. This is horrible. Unfortunately, the larva are now children learning mascots. What a downgrade. There are hundreds of these where they just sing nursery rhymes and learning songs. This alone is enough reason as to why 2D Larva isn't canon, but the real reason is actually worse. Take a listen.
A is for apple,
B is for ball,
C is for cat.
D is for dog, E is for egg,
Yeah, they talk and they sing. You thought Chuck was bad? The larva cannot talk. Simply put, none of the characters can besides Chuck, which means it's impossible for this to be canon. But wait, I'm forgetting one piece of content. Larva in China. It's what the name says. However, the Chinese call this show Hilarious Bugs. Let's stick to Larva in China. There's no explanation on how they are there, why they are there. They are just there. It's not just red and yellow. It's every character from seasons 1 through 3. Brown, black, pink, violet, rainbow, green, blue, bee, maroon, Prussian, gray, the silvers, ivory, and cocoa. Also, there's 2 new characters with brief appearances, the Cockroach Brothers. Most episodes consist of them playing or eating something Chinese related, and I don't understand any of it because I'm American. This show has 2 seasons, and it's really hard to tell if it's canon. Tons of characters that have never met are now there together, with no mention of how they're there. There's no mention of any island or family family characters, so one would assume it's before those took place, but due to any lack of explanation or any other references of how or why they're there, I think it's safe to say it's non-canon. Or it's a multiverse thing. And I'm not gonna go that far. I think that's the end of the Larva universe so far. Other than the Larva and Mars episodes, I don't know of anything new coming out. I think I ordered everything in the timeline correctly, except for the few occasional online exclusive videos. Which I'm not gonna do. Also, the video games. There's some junky mobile games that don't add anything to the story, so they aren't worth mentioning. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the real-life Larva theme park. I have always held Larva near and dear to me, and I'm so glad I finally have a reason to spew my encyclopedic knowledge about it. I'm not kidding, I've seen Season 1 about 100 times this past decade. That's about it. Remember, I'm running my campaign for president, and I will win under the Hmong Party. You can vote for me by hitting the subscribe button, and what's amazing is you don't even have to wait till November.